Hi, I'm Wild Bill, Foreign Affairs Correspondent for Redbeard Pirate Radio. Today I'd like to give my own views, no one else's, on global naval strategy from the United States perspective. Surface ships are big. They've got a lot of area to defend, to protect, and to paint. To that end, it seems that we've gone from a defend the ship concept to a defend the mission concept. The old school master of this dichotomy is the battleship. Anti-surface weapons, anti-aircraft weapons, sensors, and armor, all in one 50,000 tons displacement package. Today, the newer approach is the task group, where a carrier is surrounded by a fluttering horde of smaller ships with specialized roles: anti-ship, anti-air, anti-submarine, and ESM, electronic sensor measures, or scouting, being the salient ones. The problem with the old school approach is simple and readily apparent. Disable a rudder and you're screwed. That's what happened to the German battleship Bismarck in World War II. One of its two rudders was struck hard over by a lucky, extremely lucky but not unparalleled, it happens, torpedo strike by a swordfish biplane, and that was all she wrote. Circling 1,000 miles out of friendly fighter range, she was hammered to a smoking ruin by British battleships and cruisers. The problems with the newer approach are also readily evident, and just as significant. And an enemy sub-launched torpedo can still sneak inside the defensive cordon of a modern carrier and take out a rudder, or worse. I cite that Swedish sub that on exercise made multiple mock attack runs through a USN carrier task force to effectively sink the carrier. Worse than that, a carrier task force or battle group can't stay coherent. The carrier has to steam along at 30 knots to launch and recover modern, heavy, fast aircraft. It does this in long loops outside of its escorts formation because they have much shorter legs, a smaller fuel tether in other words. The carriers escorting destroyers and cruisers, not to mention the ASW destroyer escorts, can't follow it through these high-speed loops without needing frequent refueling. So sink the oiler you know is nearby and you mission kill the entire battle group. Whoopsie. A modern hypersonic missile, should it function as advertised, and it probably won't, can carry a nuclear warhead into the center of that carrier battle group, which will likely mission kill the unit, even if it does not damage the carrier. A battleship might, I emphasize might, survive a nearby nuclear blast. Its sensors will probably be blown away and the on-deck personnel killed instantly or shortly after by radiation. I mourn for you, 1st Division. But it would still represent an asset that must be further addressed by enemy units. A carrier, on the other hand, will be ruined by a nearby nuclear blast, all decontamination efforts aside. What about the non-nuclear option? Well, modern anti-ship missiles carry a lot of kinetic energy. They almost auto-kill any modern warship, including carriers, if they hit it. That's 100% because modern ships aren't armored. Any World War II battleship would shrug off most hits by modern anti-ship missiles like they were bee stings. But battleships are difficult to produce, chiefly because armoring an enormous ship to a high standard is a huge technological challenge, especially today. We're not up to it anymore. Neither is anyone else. So where do we go from here? Our fleet in being forces all near peers to develop costly missile programs to counter it in any potential conflict, and to sink money into the AIP, that's Air-Independent Propulsion, submarine money pit. Everything that's meant to cruise underwater is 10 times as expensive per ton as anything on the surface. That makes manufacturers very happy, but slows and limits production numbers severely. Seen from the strategic point of view, it's the same as sinking half an enemy's fleet. One very important thing about naval conflict, it doesn't nuke your population centers. In fact, it wastes enemy potential, as the enemy must take out your fleet in being or be subject to a second or retaliatory strike and annihilation. That's what our boomers, our ballistic missile-armed submarines, represent, that retaliatory strike potential. So a potential enemy must consider our surface fleet before attempting any major military ploy involving moving troops or weapons across the seas, and our submarine fleet, and our United States Air Force strategic bombing arm, and our hardened missile silos out west. Managing all that will likely break the bank, as well as divert funds from social programs and general enfranchisement of its citizenry. An unhappy citizenry can act as a major brake on new military spending or social program cuts to finance a military expedition. Moreover, an unhappy enemy citizenry is more susceptible to our propaganda and espionage efforts. I ask you, is war unmanageable from the budgetary perspective? Oh yes, absolutely, has always been. Does that make anyone stop? That's the important question here, I think. If it does, then our leaders have done well by us, and I salute you on both sides of our illusory political divide. From recent events, however, it looks like the jury is still out on that most crucial question. Wild Bill.